Hey everybody, I am here at the Monacacy National Battlefield in central Maryland, sitting just south of the city of Frederick. This area doesn't quite really have a name. It's kind of in between neighborhoods. You could probably call it Ballinger Creek. If you just told people in the Monacacy area, they'd more or less know what you meant. Anyways, I'm gonna do a lot of videos here this year coming up, and each are gonna be a little bit different. So what I basically want to do is I want to kind of tell the story in a couple different ways. The light in here is so awful. It's so, I'm sorry, so you know what, that's my one criticism of this visitor center. I just want to put that out there. It is a great visitor center. To the folks at the park who run it, it is awesome. You guys are terrific. The rangers are excellent. The battlefield is awesome. The walks, the signs are out there, everything. The artifacts in here are terrific, but you need more light. It's hard to read things. It's hard to read that New York Times magazine over there. It's hard to read a lot of stuff in here. We need more light in this place. Anyways, so I'm sorry. I love the Park Service and I love these places, and they did a great job with this visitor center. So briefly, I want to go over. I guess we can go over the battle. This was the battle that saved Washington. This was a battle wherein a guy who kind of got passed over and given the put on the shelf, if you will, Lew Wallace, right there. That's my guy, and he's a big favorite of a lot of folks around here, and I'm no exception. An extremely impressive and extraordinary man. So he is kind of babysitting the middle department, which is this area of central Maryland, which sits between Baltimore and Frederick. Jubal Early, right there, is sneaking through the Shenandoah, unbeknownst to Grant and to the folks in the Union, and Grant Meade and so on and so forth. And he's making an astounding pace. He does 200 miles in 3 weeks. That's a grueling pace. I mean, these soldiers at this point were pretty used to marching, but that was pretty legendary feat. A lot of folks get a lot of credit for certain favorite marches in the Civil War, and I think this is kind of forgotten one. Jubal Early's march up around Washington through the Shenandoah and up into Maryland was pretty darn impressive. So that's one kind of a standout aspect of this conflict. There are a lot of standout aspects. There are a lot of things that that the people thought that couldn't be done. So he makes it up here to central Maryland, across Harper's Ferry and all that stuff in extraordinary time, and threatens Washington, which was another thing that wasn't supposed to happen. They didn't think could be possible. But of course, Washington was left much undefended because everybody put Lincoln and company put their eggs and all in one basket down in Petersburg, and we're doing a good job of holding the Confederates up, of course. Now this is as the war is starting to wind down. So what Robert E. Lee, his strategy is, Robert E. Lee he knows he's in a bad situation, and he knows he can't stay pinned down in Petersburg forever. So his ploy is to send Early around and threaten the capital, not so much in an effort to really take the capital and hold it for any amount of time in a siege or something, but to cause a lot of mayhem, cause a lot of disruption, threaten the capital, give them a good scare, throw a monkey wrench into Lincoln's reelection hopes. That was a big goal, but the main point was to draw troops away from Petersburg, so everybody else, the Confederates down there, could have some respite, because they were in a pretty bad situation, like I said, and there was kind of no way out, and it worked. So this was a very weird battle, where, like I said, everybody involved kind of did everything right. Nobody made any big missteps. Who else should I move on to? I want to move on to someone before I move on to Wallace. I mean, we have Early. So another point about this impossibility is much of the reason why Early was able to make such good speed was because there were warnings to Washington that he was in the vicinity, and Washington ignored them. They ignored them largely because they had it out for Lew Wallace. Halleck certainly probably more than anybody else, more than Grant possibly. But Halleck really had it out for. This goes back to the Battle of Shiloh, and you guys can YouTube more on that and more on why Lew Wallace was kind of slighted after the Battle of Shiloh, and as most of us think, unfairly so. So that's why he's in the middle department. So Early is making record time up here. Wallace is a guy that wasn't even supposed to be in this situation. He is one of the most impressive people I've getting goosebumps, really ever studied, because he, after Shiloh, he gets slighted, right? Oh, I'm sorry. Cleared the lump in my throat. So between this time, unbeknownst to most people, he saved the city of Cincinnati as well, and that's a very, very important point I want to make, because much overlooked in the story of Lew Wallace. And you can watch video after video and read up a lot on this guy, and you can get quite a ways into the story until you realize that Mr. Lew Wallace, before he saved Washington, he saved Cincinnati. So this is let's see, 1862, I guess. This is a bit early in the war. This is before Monacacy, and this is before Gettysburg. So he is sent, but this is after Shiloh. Hope I got all this right. So they, the Confederates are making inroads a little further away from the East Coast, and they're actually threatening to move into the Midwest, into the border states, which would be a real big mess, because, you know, the Union doesn't have a lot of support out there, of course. And in that situation too, they kind of snuck up on the Union, made more progress than the Union thought, and before you know it, the Union just kind of turns around, and the Confederacy is right at the doorstep of Ohio, right across the Kentucky River from Cincinnati. So that's a situation before we even get to Monacacy. Lew Wallace is sent over there, and in extremely short order, in about 2 days, he mobilizes the town. He has no real contingent. He's got a little ragtag band with him. He mobilizes the whole town, builds defenses, builds breastworks, builds all kinds of defenses around the city, with people who don't know anything about this. And this, I think, is as much to his credit, possibly as much to his credit as saving D.C. Because, again, D.C. wasn't really threatened in the way that some people kind of make it out to be. It was going to be more of an embarrassment and a headache. The Confederates wouldn't have been able to hold D.C. for long. So before we get to Monacacy, this amazing guy right here also saved the city of Cincinnati, and there was hardly, here's another crazy part, there was hardly a shot fired. Again, I'm not the battlefield guy with all the generals' names and stuff. There was a General Kirby. General Kirby and another Confederate general were kind of working together in the same area, and they come up on to look across the Kentucky River the morning they plan to invade. They see the defenses that Lew Wallace built, and they turn right around. They go home. It was that impressive. That was before Monacacy. So we get to the Battle of Monacacy, and the whole point is for Lew Wallace to build, to buy time, so that he stalls Early's advance to Washington. He probably understands the whole situation perfectly. He probably understands that Early isn't going to be able to hold the city, but he's going to be able to make a big mess, possibly set some things on fire. He did burn, it was Montgomery Blair's house, a very prominent politician in Washington. But that's about as much as they really did. You know, that they kind of poked and prodded around. They took a look, and they basically did the same thing that the Confederates were forced to do in Cincinnati, and they just rolled out. And again, that's to Early's credit, because I think, I don't know, some commanders, some generals might have been a little more ambitious and hot-headed, and may have gotten themselves into some real trouble, into a situation that they might not have been able to evacuate well from. Anyways, so this guy over here, my hero, Lew Wallace, he is here to buy time, and he does everything right. He takes the high ground around a bend of the river. He doesn't get too ambitious. He sets He sets up the artillery in all the right places, and his job is just to buy time, and that he does. So there are basically three assaults on the Union lines, the skirmish lines. You know, I could press the button in here, but you know, I'm just gonna. So Confederates are advancing over here. Union's over here on this side. I'm gonna get my farms messed up. I think this would be the Thomas Farm area here. That would be, I think, the Worthington area up there. I'm probably wrong, and someone can feel free to correct me. But this is the Monacacy River. Union set up over here. Confederates are coming over here. The Union under Ricketts, Ricketts, by the way, is working with Lew Wallace, and Lew Wallace really looked out there because all he had was 100 days men, and he meets up with Ricketts. So Ricketts has this line right here that repels 3 Confederate thrusts, 3 Confederate advances throughout. It's what the Union did here, what these men did under Wallace and Ricketts was absolutely incredible. It was one of the most courageous stories I've ever heard. And I've heard a lot of the Civil War stories now. He didn't have to take up this fight. He could have turned this fight down. He didn't have to save Cincinnati. He didn't have to do any of this. He did nothing but get the short shift from his superiors the whole time, and all he did was save their butts.